Michael Saylor has engineered the most aggressive Bitcoin acquisition machine with $63 billion to stack up as much as he can. Stick around and let's find out how MicroStrategy, now Strategy, is becoming the largest Bitcoin treasury in the world. Hey guys, welcome again. I'm Angarlo, entrepreneur, investor, and crypto geek. Today, let's talk about MicroStrategy, now rebranded as Strategy. This is Michael Saylor's company, and they have been basically a Bitcoin acquisition machine, as I mentioned on the title of this video. So let's take a step back and start in 2020. Michael Saylor has this company, MicroStrategy, and he's sitting on $500 million of cash. And you will think that's a pretty good position to be at, but the reality is that that cash is losing value over time. And he finds out that inflation and basically interest rates and make this asset that is supposed to appreciate actually depreciating his company. So he starts seeing his company decline and he starts figuring out, well, where can I put some of my money into? Long story short, he discovers Bitcoin in 2020. He understands the limited supply of 21 million, and basically he starts with a very aggressive acquisition strategy. The first thing that happened was in August of 2020, where out of the $500 million in cash, he spent $250 million, basically half out of that, to buy 21,454 Bitcoins. Basically, that made MicroStrategy back then the first publicly company to hold Bitcoin. And ever since, basically, Bitcoin has fluctuated. But what has become of MicroStrategy is essentially a lever played on Bitcoin. What does this mean? It means that when Bitcoin goes up, MicroStrategy goes higher up, more violently. Why? Because the underlying asset that they have, which right now is the bulk of their own market cap or company value, which keeps appreciating in value, and then investors also attribute some premium on top of that because of the strategy that MicroStrategy or Strategy now has of acquiring more Bitcoin. What is this famous strategy? So since 2023 and 2024, basically MicroStrategy has been doing acquisitions through issuance of debt and through at-the-market offerings. What is an at-the-market offering? Is basically issuing more stock. Typically, when you issue more stock, if you're a company and you issue more stock, you're diluting the value of your stock. But in this case, the proceedings of that sale that MicroStrategy has been doing is immediately going towards buying more Bitcoin. So an interesting thing that has happened is that now there is this metric, which is called basically the BTC yield. What does this mean? It's essentially for every share that you have of Strategy, how much Bitcoin do you have underneath it? And that metric is the one that has been appreciating over time. Let's talk about something that happened late last year. In October of 2024, Michael Saylor comes out and lays out what he called the 21-21 plan, where he said, okay, Bitcoin is clearly the strategy that we want to pursue here. In fact, we're rebranding our company to Strategy. And what he does is essentially, he says, we're going to spend $21 billion in equity, meaning more shares or stock that they release to acquire these $21 billion to buy more Bitcoin. And then another $21 billion through fixed income debt, basically some bonds that they release for highly qualified investors that have no risk. And essentially, they have a guaranteed payment. Those payment terms are due up until 2029. And essentially, the interest that they have access to this debt is ridiculously low. How low? 0%. I know, interest rates are crazy right now, but for institutions and for a strategy as novel and as powerful as the one that Michael Saylor has devised, essentially there is a lot of appetite for it, and there are institutions and investors giving him money to acquire more Bitcoin. Now, how much Bitcoin has he acquired so far? Well, it's close to get to 500,000 Bitcoins, which is essentially 2% of the entire Bitcoin supply. But he's not stopping right here. Essentially, this year in 2025, he also released a new kind of stock, a new preferred stock called STRK. Now, this stock has other characteristics, which I'm going to show you in a bit, but these characteristics essentially makes it a stock that has a dividend, has some basically income for those that hold this stock, and it's a stock that it's basically a byproduct or it's a byproduct of MicroStrategy, where they are issuing these shares with a dividend, with some cash that the investors get, but in return they are keep capitalizing. And now this week Michael Saylor came out yet again and basically announced yet another $21 billion that through at-the-market offerings for STRK, the new stock, they are going to repurpose to acquire more Bitcoin. So if you have been following me so far, you start to realize that this guy, between the $21 billion in debt, the $21 billion in MicroStrategy at the market stock, and the $21 billion of STRK at the market offering as well, he is spending $63 billion in acquiring Bitcoin. And mind you, in a time where Bitcoin right now is around the $80,000, and it's at a great entry price since there's a lot of adoption, institutional adoption, not only from other companies, but also nationwide adoption that is starting to take place right now. So let's now go into some of the presentation slides that I want to show you about how this looks like in the future. Okay, let's start with this real quick. This is exactly what I was telling you about, in how since Q4 2024, MicroStrategy has been aggressively acquiring more Bitcoin. It increased from 252,000 Bitcoins to 447,000 at the end of 2024. And right now, I know that this is cut off as of February 2nd. I can tell you there are a few Bitcoins away from getting to the half a million, basically 500,000 Bitcoins mark. Now, this is exactly how they have been issuing debt and equities. Basically, the yellow bars right here are the at-the-market offerings, where they issue more equity to capitalize, and then fixed income are the orange bars. As you see right here, essentially quarter to date in 2024 and in 2025, they have $2.4 billion that they have issued in equity and only 0.6 in fixed income. And essentially last year they were able to raise $22.6 billion for acquiring Bitcoin, and year to date they have only raised around 3. What does this mean? It means that out of the original 21 strategy for buying Bitcoin, they have already consumed 80% of the dilution of stock or shares that is taking place through their at-the-market offering right now. They only have about $4 billion left to keep doing that. However, they still have about $17 billion to acquire more Bitcoin through fixed income proceedings. Now, more importantly, this is the description of STRK that I was telling you about, where they have basically a perpetual preferred stock. It has a conversion ratio with MicroStrategy stock, but most importantly here, it has this fixed yield of 8%. Now, the important thing here is that this week, on March 10th, Strategy announced basically $21 billion that will be raised through issuing STRK shares so that they can buy even more Bitcoin. So do the math. It's now $63 billion that MicroStrategy, now Strategy, are repurposing for acquiring Bitcoin. If with the budget that they had as of last year, they have already acquired almost 500,000 Bitcoins, it is predicted that with the funds that they have left, they could acquire up to 750,000 Bitcoins. So keep in mind that the share or the stock price, to be more precise, is highly volatile. If Bitcoin is volatile, MicroStrategy is even more volatile. But as Michael Saylor will say, volatility is vitality as well. If you know, like I do, that Bitcoin is the best performing asset in the world, then you know that if it goes up, MicroStrategy will go up even more aggressively. However, if it goes down, you also need to be prepared because MicroStrategy also goes down aggressively. In any case, right now, Michael Saylor has turned this company into a Bitcoin treasury machine. It becomes essentially a Bitcoin bank, and there are many other companies following his blueprint, including not only companies, but now even the US government. So please like, subscribe, and follow me for more, because in the coming videos, we're going to talk more about the US Bitcoin strategy reserve and what it implies for this year and for MicroStrategy as well. Thank you. See you on the next one.